I call the member for Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition and other speakers try to bluff their way through the mythology of the funding for our schools. Back in 2013, we committed to meet the forward budget education commitments of 4 years. The 5th and 6th year of funding was never budgeted for. The first 4 were funded, and we actually increased the investment by $1.2 billion to cover the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government shortfall. With this budget, a further $2 billion will be invested over 2018 to 2021, which brings a total of $18.6 billion. I'm sure I heard that Labor made a commitment to fund all students to 95%. Where on earth was that money going to come from, when the Labor source of funding originally was supposed to be raised by the Minerals Resources Rent Tax, and what a dud that turned out to be? I also heard about funding for Northern Territory schools, so let's just check on 2. An offence, I don't mean to have offence if I don't say this correctly, but Ampila Tawajak receives $10,930 per student this year and will get $11,121 next year. Bradshaw primary students this year receive $5,117 and next year will receive $5,207. Both are a significant increase, but the original first school mentioned is a little bit more remote. Remoteness, Indigenous, that actually gives them an extra amount of funding, and that's what's reflected in those numbers. The arguments that are being put forward by Labor are bizarre at best, dishonest at worst. They must support the amendments or shame on them. One school in my electorate has been featured, not for the amazing work they're doing, but for the rubbish regarding funding. So let's put this in context of funding reality. Narra East Public School. This year they get $3,528 per student, and next year they'll get $3,707. Just around the corner, less than 5 kilometres away, another school only gets $2,640, and next year they'll get $2,774. That is needs-based funding because Narra East is in a low socioeconomic area. It's $1,000 per student difference for the principal to be able to apply to all the wonderful programs that they're doing. We absolutely have a total combined Commonwealth and state and territory funding that's grown by 15.4% per student over the last 10 years. Commonwealth funding has increased in real terms by 72.4% for government schools and 25.7% for non-government schools. While our funding has been growing, our results are not reflected in that increased investment. How much funding we provide is important, but what we do with it is what counts. Funding should go to where it is needed most and should be used in ways that we know deliver results. But under the current funding arrangements that we inherited from the former government, funding for schools is based more on history and special deals than actual need. States and territories were treated differently by Labor depending on what deal they could negotiate. It's not acceptable that the same student with the same needs currently gets a different level of funding from the Commonwealth depending on where they live. States and territories that had historically funded their schools were actually penalised under those deals. Now, a note from a previous speaker would happen to be the member for Whitlam, who spends a fair whack of time in my electorate, hasn't actually discussed any of the schools in his electorate. So I've got 4 examples here that he might need to take notice of. Shellharbour Public School. This year they're getting $1 million, $96,200. That's $2,298 per student. Next year they get $1,151,700. That's $2,415 per student. That's an actual increase, well and above CPI, so they can continue their great programs. Flinders Public School this year gets $1,305,700. Next year they'll get $1,300,071 and $800, $2,481 per student. Dabdo High School, which is actually quite an amazing high school, I went up there to have a look at their commercial kitchen. This year they're getting $2,734,600. Next year they'll get $2,873,100. That's quite a significant increase. But need I remind those on the other side that a Commonwealth government is not responsible for the state schools. Getting the funding up to 20% for state schools is great. much better than where it is now, and we have a responsibility to do it.